So we're going to start our first unit, which is called Shadows of a Neanderthal. And we're going to focus on learning how to analyze what a text says and draw inferences from it so that you can support an analysis and understand the meanings of texts. We're starting with something simple in terms of on the surface, but the meaning is a lot more complicated than what you can see. Chapter 1, in which the cave people ponder their existence. So what you're going to do is you're going to write down what I write down, okay? And you'll be turning that in. So make sure that you have that. You'll take a picture and turn that in to me. There will also be questions that I ask you. These are discussion questions that you will have to answer. There'll be a link for you to go to and answer the questions, okay? I'm going to ask them in here, but you will answer them on the discussion board. Okay, so chapter 1, in which people ponder their existence. When you are reading literature, it is really important that you look at more than just what's on the paper. We're looking for what the author intended, okay? So I see a picture here, and I'm asking myself, okay, why is this picture of cavemen? I'll go with black here. Well, cavemen makes me think of what? What image comes to mind when you say cavemen? So I'm going to start that story with that thought in mind, okay? The image of that caveman, and compare it to the picture, okay? Yeah, that's kind of what I think. Once upon a time, there were 5. We have to stop because we see a number. In literature, numbers are always symbolic. So what I want you to do is every time you see a number, you're going to highlight it and you're going to look up the symbolism of that number. So I'm going to do the first one for you. So I'm writing down in my notes 5, okay? And then it means chaos. It's symbolic of chaos, okay? And then I'm going to keep that because every piece of literature, it's the same thing. So when we have that number again in another piece of literature and you see the number 5, your brain should go, okay, chaos here. Okay, I need to remember that. Okay. Once upon a time, there were 5 caves. We need to stop. It's describing where they live. In literature, the places that people live are always symbolic. So we're going to write that down too. Okay, so a cave symbolizes superficial or limited reality. And again, you're going to keep this because in another story, when we have a cave, you're going to be able to go, okay, I now know the symbolism of cave because it applies to multiple stories. It's not just this story. Now you need to ask yourself, why is the author starting out a story with 5 people living in a cave? So that's my first discussion question for you. Okay, their names were Oonga Boonga, Oogie Boogie, and Trevor. All right, wait a minute, back up here. We got to look at the names. Okay. Names are symbolic. They tell you what the characters are like. So now we have to look at our names. What can you tell me about Oonga and Boonga? Give me a list of two, three things that you can hypothesize about Unga and Bunga. And then Oogie and Boogie. Give me a list of three things you can hypothesize about Oogie and Boogie. And then Trevor. What can we say about Trevor? So I want you to write that down as well in your notes. They lived together in a cave. There's your discussion questions. You'll get these all at the very end. In fact, the cave people never left the cave. They just stayed there day in and day out, waiting for dead bugs and dried leaves to blow in so they might have something to eat. What does this say? What does this say about the cavemen? Okay, notice what they're eating. They're eating dead bugs, and they're waiting for the leaves to blow in so they might have something to eat. Okay, what kind of people want the food to come to them? Okay. So what kind of people want everything given to them? Okay, looking at that paragraph. That's another discussion question that you're going to have. And then tone. Tone is how the author feels about certain things. Look at how he said that. In fact, the cave people never left the cave. They just stayed there, day in and day out, waiting for dead bugs and dried leaves to blow in, so they might have something to eat. The author has a tone there when he's saying this. Based on that tone, how does the author feel about people who just wait for something to be handed to them? The cave people embraced this isolated lifestyle. That's one of your vocabulary words. What does it mean? Okay. Now, this is a story that is a commentary on society. Okay. So the author is commenting on the fact that people embrace isolation. Why do you think that people do that? What are some reasons today that people might embrace an isolated lifestyle? Okay, that was a good discussion. That's because they believe that the mouth of the cave was the edge of the universe. Now, this is an important line. What does it mean? The mouth of the cave was the edge of the universe. Think back to what a cave symbolizes. Okay, limited reality. What do you think that means? Okay, very good. This situation produced some interesting existential reflections among the cave people. Now, there should be like a little warning going off in your head because these are cave people, okay? And we just talked about how they had no education. Their names are Oogie Boogie, but yet you've got the words existential reflections among them. If they have no education, how can they be reflecting amongst themselves about the meaning of life? So what is the author creating there? Why does he have that paradox of a group of uneducated people debating such an educated topic? Outside of cave is nothing. Go outside and poof, no more Unga, preached Unga. No, outside is big dragon. Dragon swallow Bunga whole, countered Bunga. No, 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 said Oogie. Outside is big mad God. Big mad God stomp on Oogie and splat. Big gross mess. Okay, so let's characterize our characters here based on just the words that I underlined. Okay, so you have Unga preaches. So think about which profession today preaches and what are some of the characteristics of that profession and assign them to Unga. Bunga countered, so he's arguing. Give me some characteristics that you think Bunga would have because he's arguing. What profession would argue? and assign them to Bunga. And Oogie is just exaggerating here. So based on just those things, I want you to try to hypothesize what they're like as people. Despite their theological differences, the cave people were united on this one point. They must never leave the cave. So thinking back to our symbolism of cave, they're happy with their reality. They're happy being limited in their knowledge. Okay? In fact, just to be safe, the cave people never even faced the mouth of the cave. Let's translate that with the symbolism. Just to be safe, the cave people never faced reality. Now, knowing the symbolism of cave changes the meaning of this. Well, it doesn't really change the meaning of the story, but it lets you see the meaning of the story. Because what is the author saying here about society? Right? Do you agree with the author in this case? Okay. Because the author may have opinions, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're your opinions. So do you think the author's right with his opinion about what he's saying with society? Right, good. They lived their entire lives with their backs turned to the entrance. As you can imagine, life was pretty dull for the small clan, and their backs were always sunburned. This is always interesting to me. Their backs were sunburned. How many of you have ever had a sunburn? It's painful, right? So what is the author saying? So what is the author saying about people who don't face reality? Again, you have another symbol there about life. You're just not going to have sunburned in any other story, so that's why I didn't have you write that symbolism down. Sometimes an animal would pass by the front of the cave, but the people would never see it. Instead, with their backs turned, they would only see the animal's shadow. Shadow is a big symbol. So what does, this one's for you to look up, okay? Look up the symbolism of shadow. You would go to Google or Yahoo, it doesn't matter which one, and you just type in symbolism of, and then you type in what you want the symbolism of. And so in this case, you would type in shadow. And then write down what shadow symbolizes, okay? And then come back and let's talk about it. They would only see the animal's shadow projected on the cave's wall. To the cave people, these shadows were reality. Okay, now that you've looked up the symbolism of shadows, look at this last line. These shadows were reality. What is the author saying about the cave people there? Let's add to our characterization list. Thus, if a hyena came leaping by the mouth of the cave people would cower, there's a vocabulary word, okay, from its shadow on the back wall. Or if a butterfly drifted by, they would leap up in delight and chase its delicate, fluttering shadow. Once, a crazed giraffe stomped a warthog to death just outside the cave. Nobody could figure out what the heck that was. The cave people never realized how limited their understanding of the world was. For them, it was just truth, and they were satisfied. Okay, let's add to our characterization list. Okay, you've got Unga, Boonga, Oogie, Boogie, and Trevor. Okay. Add at least one more word that describes them based on what we just saw. Okay. We also want to start looking at our theme. We've got the beginning of a theme kind of starting to go through. A theme is a lesson. The author is trying to teach us a lesson. And we've had a lot of repetition of the word reality and shadow. Okay. we've seen limited or a synonym for limited. And the fact that this has to do with cave people and the symbolism of cave kind of ties in there. So we're looking at a theme that has something to do with this. And we want to, as we're reading the next part, go, okay, what is the author trying to teach me about people with a limited reality?